Welcome back to the Director's Garage. Look what's missing back there, folks. Little something something. I am your host and resident idiot, Michael, and today it's an episode everyone has been waiting for. It's a full, all-inclusive review. I like to call them sound checks of the ZMF Caldera. It's the most requested review I've had in a long time. And well, buckle up, folks. I have a lot to say. Now I'm going to start this exploration off with ergonomics, folks. Big surprise, right? Well, there's really not much to knock about this headphone. It is a classic design. Natural wood. I love the smell, the feel of these things. This is a headphone of the highest quality. I do kind of wish, though, that they had allowed me to purchase these in the retro vibe of the ZMF Atrium. I love this weathered look. This is the finest headphone ever made from a look standpoint. I wish we could have gotten some of that here. This is a little bit of shiny for me. I just would have liked to rough it up a little bit, and you lose a little bit of the wood grain in this. Now, if I'm gonna nitpick, it's gonna be this little doodah right here. At the end of the headphone, it would be nice if they tucked the leather under the armature. It's hardly worth mentioning because every major factor of this headphone is perfect, but when you have Mercedes sound, the little details only improve the experience. They are a tick lighter, I think, than the Atrium. They're perfectly comfortable, not too little clamp, not too much clamp. Now, for the first time I can recall, the ZMF Caldera has a plate securing the ear pad. Normally there's a wooden groove that's just carved into the cup. Now they've got this fancy carbon fiber deal going on. It's not a huge change. These still slip on very much the same way. They're a little difficult to get on. It's kind of like changing a bicycle tire. So why the big change? Well, I suspect there are two things going on here. Number one, the plate makes it more difficult for these ear pads to just slip off by mistake. That's something that was kind of common on some other headphones I've owned from ZMF. The other reason is you've reduced the amount of mass that this wooden cup has to take. Headphones a little lighter as a result. Now, one last note before we dive into the sound. If you think you're going to need some massive amp to get these things to perform, well, I have great news. These things sound terrific on both the Ferrum Ore Stack, the Bakun 13R, even my WA5LE. No problem driving these things. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with just about any amp you put to them. To put this in Sesfara terms, I can get the same volume level out of these as the Sesfara with half the gain setting. Not kidding. It really is impressive. Now, I will say that the bass impact does improve on the Bakun, but it's not lacking on the Ferrum Ore Stack. So get out your GSX Mini or your shit stack and have at it, folks. Some amazing territory lies ahead in the land of Caldera. All right, time to start digging into the sound, and we're going to get those sound properties going with a look at the image of this headphone. And why not? This headphone images as well or better than any headphone I've ever heard. The image is locked in and it is specific. It's a total spectacle, and no matter what genre I was listening to, that image never stopped impressing. The image is the first thing I noticed when I put this headphone on. Now, next up is the sound stage, and while this is an imaging headphone first, at least to me, you do get a reasonably wide sound stage, certainly wider than the Sesfara in my opinion. It won't compete with my widest headphones like the Abyss, but it's quite a show and indeed impressive. No real complaints. Now, the Caldera is a highly detailed headphone, but it is a tick below my most resolving headphones like the Sesfara, the Carbon, the LCD5. It's not much, it's just a little bit, and it's noticeable when you get to tracks with a lot of cymbals or wide reverb or xylophones or bells. They are in the upper echelon of resolution in a headphone, but they aren't quite at that top of the mountain. Where the Caldera falls a little short in pure resolution, they make up for it in dynamics. These things have impact and go from quiet to loud as fast as any headphone I know. And yes, these do slam with the very best headphones I've heard. This is a major point of difference between the Susvara and the Caldera. If you ever wished for a Susvara with slam, the Caldera is that headphone. Let's talk realism. Now, the lower register instruments really shine on the Caldera, to me anyway, where the Susvara kind of gives you a near perfect representation of, say, a violin or a piano, those middle instruments. The Caldera really impresses me with the lower instruments like bass and upright bass or bass sax, drums. Wow, this is the most realistic drum sound I've ever heard in a headphone. It's simply stunning. My Beatles tracks with Ringo's amazing drum sounds will just knock you over. As long as we're talking realism too, this headphone stitches together instruments like few other headphones. It's very similar to the Abyss or the Meze Elite in terms of how music feels so cohesive and put together. But the technicals are generally much stronger on this headphone across the board. And with that, we're going to start breaking down the sound structure. And that means we're talking bass and mids and treble. And we're doing it, yeah, in that exact order. And we're starting with the bass because the bass is probably the star of this headphone, along with the image. It's just right.
Yes.
It's perfect. It's beautiful. It has weight and impact without overpowering the mix. The only other headphones that can compete with the Caldera's bass are the Abyss 1266TC and the Odyssey LCD4. That is the highest praise I can heap on any headphone. Electric bass, upright bass drums, all extraordinary in impact, in presence, and with spectacular detail that only the Abyss can even get close to. Being something of a bass whore, yeah, these things really knock you back. There's slam, there's power. It's a perfect bass experience and extends all the way through the bass range, even down low into the sub bass. One other bass note, I did get the thicker, bassier pads along with the stock pads, and the bass is even more impressive. My only note is that it did seem to introduce just a little bit of bloom on the bottom end, so I gave up a little bit of the bass. I know, who am I? But I did go back to the stock pads. I felt like the bloom just slightly took away from the headphone's natural bass feeling. Now, when we get to the mids, the Caldera continues its winning streak. Male vocals in particular are the highlight. These sound like they might have a slight V-tune, which I tend to prefer, but most importantly, there's no odd spike anywhere through the mids where you might pick up a little bit of harshness or a honk. It's just buttery smooth all through there. There's nothing I found to complain about. Male vocals, female vocals. I think I favor the gentleman a bit because of how well the Caldera addresses those upper bass and lower middle frequencies. Best overall mid headphone is still the Susvara, but these are very, very close. Well, we're at the treble. It's really the last chance for the Caldera to stumble, and they don't. These things, the treble is just clean and detailed. There's no harshness or splash. There's tremendous clarity and openness. These are airy, but not over the top area. And this is one area where I noticed a significant difference between the Susvara and the Caldera. The Susvara seemed to have a little bit of an edge here. There was like a little bit of gliss right on top of the treble, and I don't pick it up here. I think these are playing it just a little bit safe. Now I'm going to break from the norm here, and I'm going to do a little shootout here because y'all are asking me, how do they sound compared to the blah? And the headphone that they most ask is the Susvara, of course, and it's worth looking at because they're reasonably close headphones in some ways. The first area that I note where the Susvara takes a little bit of a lead is in the treble. The Susvara is just a little faster up top, and they're a little more open. They just seem to flow a little freer in those upper frequencies, whereas the Caldera does feel like it's playing a little safe, like it doesn't want to offend at all. And the Susvara really goes for it, you know? In the same breath, though, the bass is stronger on the Caldera by an even greater degree. The bass is just hypnotic on this headphone. On the Susvara, the bass is excellent, at least once I moved to the Bakun. But the Susvara isn't Abyss territory, whereas the Caldera is Abyss territory. It's insanely great bass. The Abyss is a little more physical. The Caldera is more musical. It's straight preference, really. And personally, I would give the advantage to the Caldera because you don't need to spend thousands for an amp to really light these things up. They scale terrifically. They don't underperform on lesser powered amps, whereas the Abyss does. We'll do a full shootout, of course, down the line and find out where everything ranks, but for now, generally, Susvara, faster and more detailed. Caldera, bassier and warmer with slam and a better image. Abyss, wider soundstage, more physical, less precise image. It's going to come straight down to preference, but all three of these headphones are outstanding. All right, big music section today. This Caldera is inspiring me to go deep, but I'm going to start in the shallower water with the Beatles because these are the very best Beatle experience I've ever had in a headphone. Paul's bass and Ringo's drums are spectacular, and on the new mixes, which pull those two elements a little more to the fore, it's even better. Abbey Road, because it's thick with bass and space. Strawberry Fields, my favorite Beatles track, is so rich in the bass and the drums and the low guitar, and then you get the infamous edit and the song explodes with effects and horns and strings. You feel those low strings and they activate the deep bass of the Caldera. It's a moving experience. The tom hits and the bass drum on A Day in the Life punch with detail and authority. I've never felt Ringo's kit the way the Caldera presents it. The stage is filled with all of these different elements, from horns to cellos and sound effects. Within You Without You, the rhythm section, vibrant and punchy. I just didn't want to stop listening. Even on lighter tracks like Mother Nature's Son, the way the different elements join the song as it builds, the simple acoustic guitar to the horn section and then the kick so deep. Paul's vocal is lovely and pure. Gorgeous stuff. And then you get to a song like Sexy Sadie, the slap echo on the piano echoing through the soundstage. It's really the balance between the deep impact of the bass and the clarity of the treble that make this a standout experience. Now, one cool thing about revisiting the Beatles catalog for the umpteenth time, you can hear a clear break from 1966 recording techniques to 1967 when Jeff Emmerich moved the miking technique on Ringo's kit. It went from a more upper mid hollower punch to a boomy thick bass with a looser tone for those final Beatles albums. It's just remarkable. I got on a massive Stevie Wonder kick in the last month. You see, in 1971, Stevie got a new contract with Motown. They really took the reins off and he was free to do what he wanted in the studio. And it turns out Stevie had a lot to say. Those early to mid-70s run of albums, they are so consistent from track to track. You'll be hard-pressed to find a more complete song-to-song set of albums loaded with unique sounds, social commentary, remarkable harmonies, and awe-inspiring performances. If you want to know where the roots of hip-hop were planted, listen to Music of My Mind, Talking Book, Intervisions, Fulfillingness's First Finale, and Songs in the Key of Life. 5 stellar albums in just 4 years. The bones are there waiting for the next generation to develop. You hear where Prince and Michael Jackson would develop their sounds. The Caldera, with that locked-in image, presents Stevie's catalog in the most jaw-dropping way. There's always some new background vocal or conga hit or synth slide coming at you in the most delightful way. I mean, everyone knows the standard: Superstition, Sir Duke, Living for the City, but listen to Maybe Your Baby off Talking Book with a Jimi Hendrix-worthy dose of guitar feedback provided by none other than Ray Parker Jr. Yeah, the Ghostbusters guy. Crazy good stuff. Jeff Beck contributes a Steely Dan-worthy effort for the Fender Rhodes heavy Looking for Another Pure Love. The song Big Brother hints at what the Black Crowes would explore in the 1990s. The language is all there. It's just waiting to be uncovered. These albums provide a link to modern music that I've never before quite put together. If you're into music, these albums deserve a re-listen. The albums are even more impressive when you realize Stevie plays damn near every instrument on every song, save a few solos here and there. I'm going to finish the music section by giving you a couple of records to consider, because in my research for this year's Grammy Awards, I had to go through a huge number of artists and tracks just to get familiar with everybody's work, and yep, I did it all in the Caldera, so I'm including these recommendations here. I did a little bit of this on the live stream too, but first up is Elvis Costello. This is an album that completely slipped through the cracks for me. It's called A Boy Named If, and it is a throwback to Elvis's early days with the Attractions. It's offbeat, quirky, vintage. The iconic keyboard of those early records is back, and the songs have, wait for it, bridges. It's the lost art of the bridge, completely missing from modern recordings. This is classic Elvis with some modern twists. My Most Beautiful Mistake is a standout, so are the opening tracks. Now, next up, I'm going from Elvis to Elvis. Finally got a chance to listen my way through the Elvis soundtrack for the Baz Luhrmann film. It features a number of Elvis songs and remixed and covers. My favorite moments were Eminem's The King and I, a fantastic hip-hop riff with Cee Lo Green, Vegas by Doja Cat, and Strange Things Are Happening by Yola. Some great takes on this soundtrack. Check it out. And I gotta give a shout out to Willie Nelson's A Beautiful Time. It's iconic Willie sounding like Willie. I mean, how do I know it's a great album? I was jumping through a ton of tracks to get through my Grammy research, and this was the album I listened all the way through. Dude is 89 years old, just saying. Great songs with a great singer will always play. So what is the ZMF Caldera? Well, I'm going to put this in headphone terms because it's kind of part LCD4 OG and part Susvara. You get this deep, rich bass with much better technicals than the LCD4, with a touch less bass presence. Mind you, the LCD4 is no slouch. It's a tremendously thrilling headphone, even today. And the fact that I can speak about the Caldera and the LCD4 in the same breath tells you that the LCD4 is the best value on the used market today. But the Caldera takes that amazing bass with all that slam and adds speed. Near Susvara speed. It's a brighter headphone than the LCD4 experience. There's treble extension that the LCD4 can't quite make, and the mids are better sorted. Plus, you get a gorgeous treble on top with sparkle and surprises that has been territory almost exclusive to like the Susvara and Electrostatics. Now the Caldera brings it all together with a wider soundstage than the Susvara and better imaging. Listening to this headphone, you would think ZMF has been making planar magnetics for years. To do this on their first effort is damn near incomprehensible. This Caldera shoots straight to the top echelon of headphone experiences. These Calderas blend all of the information into one of the most coherent headphone experiences I've ever had. I can't remember the last time a headphone made me lose myself in albums and playlists and artists for hours and hours and hours the way this has. If this is where we're heading, I can't wait to hear what's next, because this is sensational. So that's the ZMF Caldera, $4,000 of lightning in a bottle. It's a world-class headphone that, based on the pricing of today's top-tier stuff, these things are a relative bargain, at least in today's market. I think ZMF might want to reconsider their pricing, because I think these things would have had a line around the block waiting for them at a $6,000 price point. I think there's a perception that because they're cheaper, they must not be as good. It's to their credit that they've decided to make these things, well, painful to purchase, but not abyss painful. It stings, but it doesn't as far as sting. If you're looking for a spicy take on this headphone, here it is. I can't make a viable case for the Sysvara or the Abyss 1266 TC at $6,000 when the ZMF Caldera is offering as good or better performance for 1/3 the price, in an easier to drive, easier to look at, better build, and a more comfortable package. Next up on the Director's Garage, I have an unboxing episode. I'm just going to unbox some stuff that came in. Some of it, I don't even remember what I ordered. So that'll be a fun time. I also have my Records to Die For episode. And we gotta figure out what to do in this space way back here, folks. The cord stack is gone. Something gotta go there. So make sure you click all the things and subscribe to the Director's Garage so you don't miss any of the live action. Also, check out the Director's Garage sale in the comments below this video. Lots of stuff down there and some good deals too. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope this mega episode will give you Caldera dreams, and I will see you before you know it.